Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you are new to this channel, do well to hit the subscribe button and press the bell icon so that you will get notified anytime I upload a new video. Now let's dive right into it. So I decided to go for a sales performance analysis on the motorcycle dataset, and I ended up reducing everything to 3 basic questions, and you have the questions on your screen. Now to begin with, I selected all from my motorcycle data just to have a feel of how the entire data set looks like. Now you can see our data set ranges from the order number through to the payment fee. So we go back to answering the questions. Now the first question deals with which product line generates the highest revenue across different warehouses. So I started by selecting my warehouse and I went in straight for my product line. Also moved on to get my net revenue. Now in finding my net revenue, I use the round and cast statement. Now I use the cast statement to modify the outcome of the calculation in there to numeric, so that it will help me to use the round statement to round the outcome to the two decimal places. Now I did that and I named it net revenue, and all these things were selected from the motorcycle data. Now I ended up grouping it by warehouse and product line and ordered it by the same warehouse, and this time round it was the net revenue. I added my descending order to it and I ran it, and voila. So you can see this is the outcome. Now if you take a critical look at the outcome, you can see that when you look at the central warehouse, it is the suspension and traction that is raking in more revenue. When you look at the north warehouse, you can see that it's the same suspension and traction that is raking in more. But when you go to the west, you realize that it is the frame and body that is raking in more revenue, followed by the suspension and traction. So we move on to the second question, which says that how does sales performance vary between retail and wholesale clients? So with that, I went on by selecting my client type. Now let me say that the client type is the part of the data set that talks about whether the purchase was done in retail or in wholesale, followed by my product line as usual. Then I went in for my net revenue because I want to find out whether I earn more money when I sell it on retail basis or when I sell it on wholesale basis. So I used my round and cast as usual, so that I'll be able to round it to 2 decimal places to find my net revenue, and went ahead as usual from my motorcycle data. Then I moved on by grouping the whole thing by the client type and the product line. I followed up with ordering the whole thing by the client type and in this case the net revenue. Now we run it and this is the outcome. As you can see, we have the retail and we have the wholesale. Now if you want to do it in descending order, that if you want to see it in descending order, you add your descending command to it and you run it again, and as you can see, this is our table with the descending order, where you can see that suspension and traction brings in more money when it's done on retail basis, and frame and body rakes in more money when it's done on wholesale basis. Now you can change the appearance of the entries of the table by changing the order by or changing the columns in the order by. When you use the net revenue, you realize that it has changed. In this case, frame and body is bringing in more value and all that. If you decide to go by the client type and the net revenue like we did in the beginning, you run it and it will also give you a new appearance. Okay, so we go to the third question, which looks at the monthly sales trend. Now I modified this question because the data set was not even up to a year. It only deals with only 3 months. So I decided to modify the question so that it won't create any problem. So in this particular case, I went for my case when right from the beginning, because we are looking at the monthly. sales trend. So I decided to go for the case when at the beginning, because if you use the extract month from date, what is going to happen is that it's going to give you the numerical value of the months that we have. So I use the case when statement to assign the actual name of the various months to the values that will be obtained from the extract month from date, and that's what you see on your screen. So with that, I ended it and gave it a name, month. Then I proceeded to finding my net revenue, and in this case is going to be our monthly revenue. So I used the round and cast as usual, and went for my sum of the total minus the sum of the payment fee. Used the transformed it to numeric to 2 decimal places and gave it a name, monthly revenue, or net monthly revenue. Now I went further to add the quantity of items that are being sold in each month to it, and with that I used the sum of the quantity and I gave it a name, total quantity. All of this from the motorcycle data, grouped it by the month, followed by the ordering of the table, which I did by using net monthly revenue, and the total quantity. Now I ran it and this is the outcome. From this table, I think I forgot to add the descending order, so I brought it back to run it, and basically it wasn't giving me what I wanted, so I moved one of the columns from the order by, and I think I later landed on what I was looking for, how I wanted the table to appear. So what I did was I removed the total quantity and did the ordering simply by the net monthly revenue, since that's what I was looking for. And as you can see, August is the month that is raking in more revenue, more than the others. Thank you very much, and stay tuned for the next one. So I decided to check the warehouse efficiency of a motor spare parts selling company, and I reduced it to 3 questions, namely, which warehouse has the highest sales value, what is the average order value by warehouse, and are there any monthly variations in sales by warehouse. So as usual, I started by selecting all from the motorcycle data, just to have a feel of how the data set looks like, so that I will, out of that, be able to know the columns I will need to perform this kind of analysis. So let's go into the questions. Now for the first question, which goes like, which warehouse has the highest sales volume? I selected the warehouse. Then I proceeded into getting the number of items that is being sold. So I used my sum quantity and gave it an alias, that is total quantity. And as usual, I'm selecting from the motorcycle data. So I decided to group by warehouse and order the whole thing by the total quantity. Now, once that is done, I added my descending command and I ran it. Now at this point I had an error, and this was because I shouldn't have brought a comma. So when I corrected that, voila, this was the answer. Now you can see that the central warehouse has a lot of items being sold than all the other warehouses. It's being followed by north, followed by the west. Now we go to the second question. The second question is, what is the average order value by warehouse? So with that, I selected my warehouse once again. Then I proceeded to look for the revenue that each warehouse is raking in. So I used the round cast statement. Now I used the cast because I wanted to be able to modify or change the data type of the calculations I'm performing to numeric, so that I can use the round off statement to round it to 2 decimal places. So I did that, gave it the name average order value, and as usual from the motorcycle data, I grouped it by warehouse and I ordered by the average order value. Now in this case also, I wanted to arrange it from the highest to the lowest, so I used the descending, and voila, we have our results here. Now from this table, we can see that the average order value for central warehouse is the highest, followed by the north and the west. So with that, we jumped right into the third question, which is, are there any monthly variations in sales by warehouse? And with that also, I selected my warehouse, and at this point I decided to go into the case when statement. Now I use the case when statement in this particular instance because if I use the extract month from date, it is going to give me the numerical value of the months I'm looking for. So I use the case when statement to assign the actual name or the common name we have for these months to the numerical values. So as you can see, when it's 6, I assigned June, 7, I gave it July, then when it's 8, I assigned August. Now I ended this with an alias, which is the month. So I gave it the name month. That is what I mean by giving it an alias. And I proceeded to getting my net revenue or monthly revenue for this particular instance by using the round cast as I did in the previous question. Now on this part, I'm looking at the sum and not the average. So as you can see, I used the sum total minus the sum payment fee, and I gave it an alias monthly revenue. Now I decided to add the quantity of items being sold per month to this one. So I used the sum quantity as monthly quantity. And as usual from the motorcycle data, I decided to group it by warehouse and month. Then I ordered it by the same warehouse and the monthly revenue, and I used descending so that I can view it from the highest to the lowest. So I ran this and voila, this is the outcome. Now when you check the outcome very well, you can see that August in this case is bringing in more revenue so far as the central warehouse is concerned. The same August brings in more revenue when we look at the north warehouse, but when we go to the west, you realize that it is June that is raking in more revenue. So further analysis can be done on this to ascertain why this is so. But until then, I will say thank you and catch you in the next one. Bye.